They say in the corporate world, you should never bring a knife to a gunfight. My boss brought a stolen idea, but I brought a time bomb, made of his own lies. And I set the timer to go off in front of the one man who could end his entire world with a single word. My name is Jake. I am 32 years old. And for 3 years, I was the golden boy at a top tech firm, working under a narcissistic boss named Marcus Thorne. A man who saw my talent not as an asset to the team, but as a resource to be plundered. He thought he could steal my multi-million-dollar project, erase my name from history, and leave me to rot in obscurity. He was about to learn that the quietest people keep the most detailed records, and that my memory was very, very long. It all started with Project Chimera. It wasn't just another project. It was my masterpiece, a revolutionary logistics AI I had been developing in my spare time for over a year. It was predictive, efficient, and had the potential to save the company millions in shipping costs. It was my ticket out of the mid-level trenches and into a senior role. When I finally felt it was ready, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I showed it to Marcus. In his office, he was a picture of encouragement. He leaned over my laptop, his eyes wide, with what I mistook for excitement. "This is brilliant, Jake," he'd said, his voice smooth as venom. "Truly brilliant. You've outdone yourself. Let me take this to the board. I'll make sure you get full credit. We'll be a team on this." The word team was the first lie in a long and devastating campaign of deceit. I gave him my files, my code, my research. I gave him the keys to everything I have worked hard for, believing he was going to announce me as its architect. The betrayal wasn't a slow burn. It was a public execution. 2 weeks later, an email went out to the entire department. A special commendation meeting with the senior vice president. I walked in, my heart pounding with anticipation, and I saw my project, Project Chimera, up on the main screen. But the title slide didn't say developed by Jake Parker. It said conceptualized and executed by Marcus Thorne. My name was nowhere. Not in the credits, not in the footnotes, nowhere. I had been erased. I sat there, in the back of the conference room, my blood turning cold as I watched Marcus glide through my presentation slides, speaking my words, claiming my innovations as his own. He was getting a standing ovation for my work. My work. I felt a dizzying wave of nausea, the air sucked out of my lungs. This wasn't just credit stealing. This was the complete theft of my professional identity. After the meeting, as people were clapping him on the back, I cornered him by the coffee machine. "Marcus, what the hell was that?" I whispered, my voice shaking with rage. My name wasn't on it. He turned to me, his friendly mask gone, replaced with a cold, dead-eyed stare. "The project needed a senior name to get it approved, Jake," he said, not even bothering to keep his voice down. "This is how the game is played. Be a team player. Your time will come." "My time? You just stole a multi-million-dollar idea from me." He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a menacing hiss. "Let me be very clear. Right now, you are the guy who worked on a successful project under my leadership. If you make a fuss, you will be the disgruntled, junior employee who couldn't handle the pressure and was let go for insubordination. Who do you think they're going to believe? Now, get back to your desk and be grateful you still have one." The threat was clear. He hadn't just stolen my work. He had put a gun to my career. In that moment, I felt a terrifying, suffocating fear. He was right. He was a senior director. I was a mid-level programmer. It was my word against his, and his word was corporate law. I walked back to my desk, the sympathetic and pitying looks of my colleagues burning into my back. I felt utterly defeated, and for the rest of that day, I was. But as the sun went down, that burning fear began to cool and harden into something else, something unexplainable, but felt like a strange energy and patience. It was the beginning of my carefully orchestrated revenge. The weeks that followed were a series of underground battles. Marcus knew he couldn't just fire me. It would look too suspicious after I had contributed to his great success. So his strategy was to make my life such a living hell that I would quit. It was a campaign of corporate sabotage designed to break my spirit. His hate for me was for no just cause. My workload was suddenly tripled, but not with meaningful tasks. I was buried under an avalanche of menial, soul-crushing grunt work, data entry, debugging decade-old legacy code, writing documentation for projects that had been canceled years ago. It was a clear message. Your talent is worthless here. You are nothing. He would CC senior management on emails pointing out a single typo in a 100-page document I'd written. He would publicly question my methodology in team meetings, framing my valid points as naive or lacking a strategic overview. It was a relentless campaign of gaslighting and humiliation designed to isolate me and destroy my professional credibility. I saw him turning my colleagues against me. The ones who had been my friends now kept their distance, afraid to be associated with me. They saw the target on my back. Lunch invitations stopped. I'd walk to the coffee machine, and conversations would die down. The isolation was the worst part, the feeling of being a ghost in an office where I used to be a rising star. Every day was a battle for my own sanity. The fear was a constant companion, the fear of being fired, of being blacklisted in the industry, of this one man having the power to ruin everything I had worked for. But what Marcus didn't know was that with every insult, with every fabricated complaint, he wasn't breaking me. He was forging me into a weapon. I made a decision. I would not quit. I would stay, and I would endure, and I would document everything. I became a conscientious record keeper of my own abuse. I started a private log on an encrypted drive. Every demeaning task, every public humiliation, every passive-aggressive email was screenshotted, dated, and annotated. I used a secret app on my phone to record every single one-on-one meeting I had with him in my office. I knew the one-party consent laws in our area. It was perfectly legal. I captured him admitting, in his own arrogant words, that he was deliberately giving me impossible deadlines to see what I was made of. I recorded him laughing about how he'd presented my work as his own, calling it a necessary evil for managing executive perceptions. Each recording, each email, each log entry was another piece of ammunition. I wasn't just building a case for HR. HR was for cowards. I was building a bomb. After 3 months of silent suffering and proper evidence gathering, I knew I had a powerful arsenal, but I had no way to deploy it. An email to HR would get him a slap on the wrist, and I'd be quietly managed out of the company 6 months later. I needed a way to detonate my bomb in the most public, most undeniable, most career-ending way possible. And that's when I found out I wasn't his only victim. Her name was Chloe. She was a senior analyst in the IT department, a quiet, fiercely intelligent woman who had a reputation for not suffering fools. I noticed her giving Marcus a look of pure venom in a meeting one day, and I took a chance. I caught up with her later, and I just said it. "You're not a fan of Marcus Thorne, are you?" Her eyes narrowed. "Nobody is," she said. "But most people are too scared to say it." Over coffee, far away from the office, she told me her story. 2 years prior, she had designed a new data security protocol. Marcus, who was tangentially involved, had presented it to the board, claimed credit, and got a massive bonus for it. She had gone to HR, and they had buried it, telling her she should be happy the project was implemented. Since then, she had been waiting for a chance to see him get what he deserved. She was my unexpected ally, and she held the key to my entire plan. My revenge had been a vague concept, but with Chloe's technical expertise, it crystallized into a concrete, terrifyingly brilliant plan. The company's annual town hall was in 2 months. It was a massive event, broadcast live to all our international offices. The CEO, a formidable man named Mr. Davies, would be there, giving a keynote speech, and at the end of the event, They always presented the Innovator of the Year award, an award that, I had heard through the grapevine, Marcus was the shoo-in to win for Project Chimera. The trap was simple in its elegance and utterly devastating in its potential. Chloe had administrative access to the company's presentation servers. Marcus was arrogant and technically incompetent. He would, as he always did, upload his acceptance speech presentation at the very last minute from his own laptop. Chloe's job was to create a script that would intercept that upload, a Trojan horse. When Marcus clicked the icon to launch his presentation on the big screen, it wouldn't launch his PowerPoint. It would launch a hidden file from a secure server, a file I was now calling the Marcus Thorne dossier. The next 2 months were the most tense of my life. Every day was a tightrope walk. I had to continue playing the part of the beaten-down employee, while at night, Chloe and I were secretly building the presentation that would end his career. We compiled the most damning evidence, key email chains with dates and times, a side-by-side comparison of my original code and his presentation version, and the crown jewel, a 3-minute audio supercut of his most arrogant, incriminating statements from my secret recordings, set to scrolling subtitled text. The risk was immense. If we were caught, we'd both be fired and likely sued. But the prospect of justice, of seeing his empire crumble in front of the entire company, was worth it. The day of the town hall arrived. The air in the massive auditorium was electric. Hundreds of employees, all dressed in their corporate best, buzzed with excitement. I found a seat in the back, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it might break. Chloe was stationed in the AV booth, a ghost in the machine. The event went on as planned. Mr. Davies, the CEO, gave a rousing speech about integrity and innovation. The irony was so thick, I could taste it. And then came the moment. The Innovator of the Year award. As expected, the presenter called his name, Marcus Thorne, for his visionary work on Project Chimera. The auditorium erupted in applause. I watched Marcus stand up, a preening, self-satisfied smirk on his face. He walked to the stage, shook the CEO's hand, and accepted the heavy glass trophy. He strode to the podium, basking in the applause, the perfect picture of corporate success. Thank you, he said, his voice booming across the auditorium. I'd like to share a few thoughts on the journey of innovation. He clicked the remote to start his presentation. For a split second, nothing happened. And then, the massive screens behind him flickered to life. But it wasn't his corporate headshot. It was a screenshot of an email. My email to him, dated 6 months ago, with the subject line, "My proposal for Project Chimera." A confused murmur went through the crowd. Marcus froze, his smile faltering. He clicked the remote again, frantically. The next slide appeared. It was a side-by-side code comparison, showing my original, elegant code next to the butchered version from his presentation. The slide was titled, "Original versus Plagiarized." His face went pale. He was fumbling with the remote, but it was useless. Chloe had locked him out. The presentation was on a timer, playing automatically. The next slide was a direct quote from one of my recordings, in huge letters. "I don't care about credit. I care about getting the win. He's just a junior programmer. Who's going to believe him? Marcus Thorne." That's when the audio started. His voice, his smug, arrogant voice, filled the silent auditorium. The supercut of his most damning admissions played out for everyone to hear. I watched as hundreds of faces turned from the screen to him, their expressions shifting from confusion to shock and then to disgust. The final slide was the killer. It was a screenshot of his personal file from the old rental company, showing the eviction notice for non-payment, the lie that started this whole thing. Underneath it, in blood-red letters, were the words, "Integrity is what you do when no one is watching." Marcus was just standing there, paralyzed, his trophy hanging limply in his hand. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only when Mr. Davies, the CEO, walked calmly back to the podium. He took the microphone from Marcus's limp grasp. He didn't look at the screen. He looked directly at Marcus, his face a mask of cold fury. "Security," the CEO said, his voice dangerously quiet, yet carrying to every corner of the room. "Please escort Mr. Thorne out of the building. His employment is terminated, effective immediately." 2 security guards appeared and flanked a catatonic Marcus. As they led him off the stage, past a sea of his shocked colleagues, he dropped the glass trophy. It shattered on the floor, the sound echoing through the silent hall like a gunshot. It was over. My bomb had gone off, and it had vaporized him. As he was led away, my eyes met Chloe's from across the room. She gave me a single, almost imperceptible nod. We had done it. We had gotten justice. In the chaotic aftermath, I was called into the CEO's office. I laid out the entire story, backed by my dossier of evidence. The next day, I was promoted to senior project lead of the newly restructured innovation department. I had not only vanquished my enemy, I had taken his place. My revenge was not just about getting him fired. It was a complete and total restoration of the truth. It was about proving that you cannot build a career on a foundation of lies, at least not forever. The lesson I learned is that in the face of a narcissistic boss, a toxic workplace, you have 2 choices. You can run or you can fight. If you choose to fight, do not do it with emotion. Do it with data. Do it with irrefutable proof. Become a historian of your own abuse. Let your enemy's arrogance be the fuel for your victory. They say a man's home is his castle. Well, a man's work, his ideas, his integrity, that is his domain. And a man must defend his domain at all costs. I don't know if my story fits in the pro-revenge category, but I was glad I got what I worked for. And that was how my credit-stealing boss got exactly what he deserved. I'm sure many of you have your own stories of workplace justice. Share them. Make it a thing to let people know that people still do get paybacks and karma exists. Tell me how you fought back. Tell me how you won.